Hello, this is Mako from Mako's Mercantile, and in this brief tutorial video, I wanted to show you how to use the MeasureIt add-on to properly measure and scale items for 3D printing in Blender. I briefly touched on this at the end of my last video, but I never did end up covering it in that video, and so I came across a very practical example for how to use this while I was working on my own armor kit today. I felt like it was wise to take a minute to talk about how I use this tool to ensure that whenever I 3D print a piece of armor, it fits my body the way that I am designing it to fit. So, the MeasureIt tool. To enable the MeasureIt tool in Blender, the first thing that you need to go in a new project, go open the Edit menu, down to Preferences, and at the very top of the Add-ons menu, you're going to see 3D View MeasureIt. You're going to check that little checkbox to enable the add-on there. This add-on is going to show up under the in sidebar under the View tab. So down here at the very bottom, you're going to see MeasureIt Tools, and this is going to be our the module that we're working with today. So by default, all of the measurements are going to be hidden, and there won't be any measurements to begin with. So we're going to go ahead and click the Show button here in order to show our measurements. And then we're going to take our default cube and we're going to press tab to go into edit mode. And we're going to select two of the vertices on this default cube, and we're going to hit the segment button. And now you'll see this blue line shows up above, and it's going to show you the measurement between those two segments. Now, the default measurement in Blender is in meters. The default cube, you can see, takes up 2 of the grid spaces. So our measurement here from corner to corner is 2 meters, 2.0 meters. This can all be changed and configured to your project. Once you've got your project settings configured, the way that you change the units of measurement for MeasureIt specifically is down here under the Items dropdown, Units, and you can change this to whatever you would like it to be. And typically I work in millimeters whenever I'm working on armor designs, because that's how my measuring tools end up measuring. Now, the nice thing about the MeasureIt add-on is that if you tab back out of edit mode, the measurement will remain, which is different than Blender's built-in measuring tool. So you can see this measurement, and if I take the scale tool, and let's say that I go ahead and take the y-axis scale and drag it out here, you'll see that the measurement progressively increases with the scale, because the MeasureIt Tools add-on is locked to those vertices. So this allows me to scale items visually to get them precise in Blender, which is important whenever you're working with 3D printing. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my my model here and show you what I was checking in order to make sure that I'm printing accurately for 3D printing. So this is my chest plate armor and back plate armor and shoulders for my personal Mandalorian armor kit. And I've got all of the chest plate armor finished, and I'm moving on now to the collarbone plate. Now, the collarbone plate is very important because for the costume requirements that I'm going for, there's a certain spacing that needs to be present between the collarbone plate and the outside shoulder plate. And so I wanted to make sure that of two things. I wanted to make sure that my neck was going to fit inside the neck hole opening in the collarbone plate, and I wanted to make sure that my overall width on the collarbone plate was going to leave me enough room on my shoulders in order to properly fit my shoulder plates out and space them properly. So what I did here is, because I already have physical objects for these prints, right? So I already have printed a number of these items, and I'm able to really quickly see how these items are going to scale to my body in the real world. What I ended up doing here was I actually took this plate down here at the bottom, and I held it up to my collarbone to kind of give myself a good gauge on how wide I needed the collarbone plate to fit. So what I did is I selected this object, I hit Shift-D to duplicate it, Escape to drop it, and I drug it up just like this to the top, and then I brought it over just a little bit. And what I did here was I was using this both as a visual comparison, but I also used the MeasureIt tools to figure out exactly how wide this belly plate was and scale my collarbone plate to match it. So as before, I hit tab on the belly plate to go into edit mode, and then I selected my two outside vertices. And what I did is I went ahead and I hit the segment button, and you'll see now that this measurement has jumped up between those 2 points on my belly plate. And I knew this belly plate was the perfect width for my collarbone plate just because, I was physically able to hold this up to my body and check it against where I needed the dimensions to be. But if you aren't able to do that, then you can also use a measuring tool of your that meets your needs, whether it's tailoring measuring tape or cosplay calipers or whatever you end up needing. So once I had this measurement, this 271/84, I went ahead and deleted this object, and I selected my collarbone plate. And similarly, I took my outside edges and I went ahead and I created a segment measure, and you can see there I've got the 271/72. So I was able to, once I created that segment measure, I was able to go out of edit mode, back into object mode, and take my scale tool and scale this to fit exactly what I needed it to fit to be the right size for my collarbone. And similarly, I was also checking the neck spacing. I knew I needed a minimum of 168 millimeters in order to fit my neck inside of the neck opening in the collarbone plate. And so as long as I didn't drop below 160 millimeters, then I knew I was going to have plenty of space there. And that is how I use the MeasureIt tool in order to properly scale objects for 3D printing in Blender. If this tutorial was helpful, I would appreciate if you gave it a like or a comment. This is very much a work in progress as I'm learning how to do all of these things just kind of by hands-on exploration through Blender. There may be more tutorials like this in the future, so if you would like to keep an eye out for these kinds of things, also consider dropping a subscribe. And if I don't see you until then, thanks for watching.